Follow the traffic situation around the country. Very good morning to you, South Africa, and those watching around the world. My name is Blaine Herman, and this is The Agenda. It's Saturday, the 15th of December, 2018. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. We welcome your thoughts on the program. Do stay in touch. You can send us your voice notes and videos via our WhatsApp line. The number is 081-732-8421. On Twitter, we're at The Agenda_SABC, and we're also on Facebook. Now, let's move on to a story where in KwaZulu-Natal, where the former Agriculture MEC, Professor Gabriel Ndabandaba, will be laid to rest today in a provincial funeral. Ndabandaba served as Member of Parliament and held various positions in the KwaZulu-Natal legislature. He was a member of the IFP until he crossed to the ANC in 2003. Now, our reporter Mlungisi Khumalo is there, and he joins us now from New Germany in KwaZulu-Natal. Hey, Mlu, thank you very much indeed for your time. Firstly, tell us about Professor Ndabandaba and his work in the KZN legislature.
Well, good morning to you, Blaine, as well as to our viewers at home. Yes, like you mentioned, the late Professor Gabriel Ndabandaba was the Member of Parliament during the stewardship of the IFP in 1999. And of course, we recall that in the year 2003, he then crossed over when he was part of the KwaZulu-Natal legislature. Now, you also recall that when Professor Ndabandaba, as some would also in fact refer to him as one of the greatest orators of our time in South Africa, even some people refer to him as one of our finest wordsmiths that the country has ever produced. Now, you recall that when he crossed over the floor to go to the ANC, he said that my body has now gone to join my soul. And of course, the IFP was very much rattled by his sentiments. And we also recall that during that year in 2003, the following year, because of Professor Ndabandaba's floor crossing, the ANC was then given majority of seats in the KwaZulu-Natal legislature. Now, we also caught up with the family, and we also interacted with them. Seemingly, they said to us that they have lost a very, very great person. They've lost a person who was more or less had dedicated his entire life to education. Now, I also recall that Professor Ndabandaba rather had a PhD in criminology, and he was also furthering his studies. And also, quite interesting enough, during the time of his death on the 28th of November, he was actually writing a book, an autobiography rather, called The Vicissitudes of My Life. Unfortunately, that autobiography was not complete, but of course we'll be able to hear more with his family when he tells us about that. And like I mentioned earlier on, he was quite a smart person, an educated person, an academic who often emphasized the issue of importance. Now, we also recall that before he became the MEC of Agriculture under the ANC stewardship, he was then the MEC of Education under the leadership of the late former Premier of KwaZulu-Natal, Mr. Lionel Mtshali. And of course, he was then sacked from that position. And when he went over to the ANC, he was then appointed the MEC of Agriculture in the province. But to tell me more about the person, the kind of person that the late Gabriel Ndabandaba was, I've got his former spokesperson, Mr. Vusi Zuma, rather. Vusi, just briefly, what are some of your fondest memories of the late Professor Gabriel Ndabandaba?
Oh, let me start by saying that it is a great loss, not for the province of KwaZulu-Natal, but for the entire South Africa. Professor Ndabandaba was very much passionate about working for poor people. In my during our time when I was his spokesperson, we would crisscross the entire province, ensuring that he was actually fighting poverty, engulfing the province of KwaZulu-Natal. And I must say that he, as you have said in your intro, is one of the person. I mean, he was quite passionate about education as well. He would from time to time encourage us that, guys, please just go and study. Please do something, even if you can't finish your degree or diploma or your honors during a certain period of time. But do something. Take it slowly until you finish it. So I think it is a great loss for the whole South Africa.
I'll be lying to you if I say that you have not learned anything from the late Ndabandaba. You yourself are quite an orator. Now, most importantly, what were some of his contributions to the agriculture industry in South Africa?
Indeed, Mlu. Let me start by saying not only agriculture only, but he was instrumental in his contribution was very valuable in contribution in this current education system that we have. But when it comes to Department of Agriculture, I must say that it was during his tenure when the department introduced the most remarkable catalyst project called Siyavuna project. You may recall it became the biggest project in the province of KwaZulu-Natal. And there was another project, Nguni, revitalization of Nguni project. You know, Mlu, that project was actually adopted by the Eastern Cape government because of its nature, you know. So you can go on. And I remember at some point, you know, the Miapen community was complaining about the high level of air pollution in that area. Prof. Ndabandaba said, you know what, we must do something about the high level of air pollution in the province of KwaZulu-Natal. As a result, he introduced air quality monitor system in the province to monitor where the high level of air pollution in the province, so that we were able to dictate the high level of air quality the level of air pollution in the province. Then the department dealt with those particular companies that were actually in violation of the Environmental Act. So I must say, you know, the list goes on. There was a rehabilitation of deep tanks in the province of KwaZulu-Natal, you know. And by the way, he also went to China. He brought back the project called Dryland Rice and Mushroom Project. What I can tell you now is that the mushroom project, even today, people of KwaZulu-Natal are still benefiting. It is one of the biggest projects that we have in the province of KwaZulu-Natal. So indeed, I think it is a great loss. It's a sad day today.
I see right now, as you are talking to me, you're becoming extremely quite emotional because you were very much close to the late Professor Gabriel Ndabandaba. Now, I recall shortly after the late professor left the legislature, in fact, during the reshuffle, he then lost his son, whom he was very, very close to. Now, we understand that his son was one of the, in fact, was the first black aeroplane aerobics in the country. But it is said that the late Professor Ndabandaba was never the same. What can you tell us about that particular ordeal?
You know, I remember, Mlu, when that happened, myself and Prof. Ndabandaba were very close. The first person that he called, it was me. He broke down into tears. You know, he could not contain himself the way he was crying. And, you know, he said to me, why God lost him, you know, and he said it is a dark day for him, you know. So that moment, Mlu, you know, his mind, he totally lost his mind during that day. He was not at a proper state of mind to think about the whole thing. As a result, we had to come in and organize the whole funeral. So he was very close to his son, and he even gave me a story of how his son was conceived, you know, so which is why they became so close. So that was a very painful ordeal for him. And unfortunately, even quite recently, when you interact with him, he would always refer to that story. And the book that you are talking about, he was writing a book about his son because they were very close, you know. So it is quite a very sad story in such a way that he even instructed his family that when he passed away or when he passed on, he would want to be buried close to his son because he believed that their souls are connected.
That is Vusi Zuma, the former spokesperson of the Department of Agriculture during the time of the late Gabriel Ndabandaba. Now you heard what Vusi said. He died, a person who was very sad after the loss of his son in 2009. And also, as he mentioned, he was a person who dwelled more into the academic sector, a person that's often emphasized that education is a key. Education is one of the only forms that you can use to alleviate yourself out of poverty. And of course, Vusi Zuma also mentioned that during the death of his son, he was never the same person. Now we understand that he died on the 28th of November. He was 86 years old, and of course today we are in New Germany, just outside Durban, where the funeral of the late professor is expected to take place. Currently, people are just trickling in their numbers, but the funeral will then start shortly. Over back to you in studio playing.
Yeah, Mlu, he was described recently as a robust intellectual. Just remind us about the funeral process today. Who can we expect?
Okay, we do understand that already there's an entourage that is making its way from Umlazi that's going to come here to New Germany. We also understand that the former premier of the province, Ndebele, might also grace us with his presence. And we also understand that the former premier of the province as well, Dr. Mlungisi, could also be here today. And of course, our main speaker for today, unfortunately, is not either of the premiers, but it is Willis Mchunu, the current premier of the province. Now, we also understand that the late Professor Gabriel Ndabandaba worked very closely with Ndebele and also worked very closely with his former boss, rather, Dr. Mlungisi. So that quite a good relationship. Now, all those people that I've named, they are also quite academics. So you can also understand what kind of leadership we had back then. And we also understand that when the late Professor Ndabandaba stepped down, he continued giving advice to some ANC members. He continued contributing underneath the ground to ensure that the ANC continued to grow in the province of KwaZulu-Natal. So basically, that's the kind of person he is. Of course, he was a professor. He had his PhD in criminology. Yeah.
Mlungisi Khumalo live for us in New Germany, in KwaZulu.